Good morning. Thank you for joining us for our Patriot Day 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony. Before we begin our program, I'd like to recognize our dignitaries who are joining us here today. With us are Lincoln Mayor Lyrian Gaylor Baird, Lincoln Police Department Chief Michon Morrow, Lancaster County Sheriff Terry Wagner, and Lincoln City Council members Tom Beckius, across the street, Benny Shobe, and Sandra Washington. Our soloist today is Amanda Palmer. Will you all please rise as we present the colors?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
It's now my pleasure to welcome to the podium Mayor Lyrian Gaylor Baird, who will offer her opening remarks. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief Engler, and good morning, everyone. And to my fellow elected officials and colleagues on the City Council, Tom Beckius and Sandra Washington and Benny Shobe, thank you for being here today to pay tribute and for your service to our city. Thank you also, Chief Morrow and Sheriff Wagner, for your service. And good morning. Thank you to Lincoln Fire and Rescue for organizing this moving memorial tribute to those whom we lost in the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. And to our first responders, military service members, veterans, and Veterans Memorial Garden Advisory Council members, thank you for your dedicated service to our community. 9/11, two numbers that when recited together become so much more than a date on the calendar. 9/11, two numbers that since that tragic day in 2001 have added up to acute loss and sorrow, an infinite war on terror, and a paradigm shift in our sense of security on American soil. Yet those two numbers, 9/11, when recited together, also have added up to something that no amount of simple arithmetic could have produced. The tragic acts of 9/11 revealed the character of our country. We bore witness that day to the fact that true superheroes are not those whom we watch on the silver screen, but are those Americans among us who rise to meet an extraordinary moment, well aware of the risks they face personally. From Todd Beamer on United Flight 93 with his rallying cry of "Let's roll," to the first responders on the ground who ran into New York's Twin Towers, billowing with smoke, Americans on 9/11 confronted danger head-on that day and bravely attempted to save the lives of other Americans whom they did not even know. Their selfless sacrifice and heroic courage inspired new heights of patriotism and a palpable unity within us, the American people. Much has rightly been done to honor those we lost as a result of the attacks on September 11th, 2001. Many worked to build a memorial of names carved in black granite with reflecting pools where the Twin Towers once stood, and a new World Trade Center now scrapes the sky in New York. On this 22nd anniversary of 9/11, we can and must continue to honor those we lost by building something else. Something not made of concrete and steel, but made of compassion and soul. We must do everything we can to build unity in our country, that same unity that we felt on September 12th, 2001. We must strive to see each other as the first responders on 9/11 saw those who were trapped in the burning buildings, as neighbors, friends, in some cases family, and in most cases, complete strangers, all of whom they simply saw as fellow Americans worthy of their protection and great sacrifice. People that day saw each other through the ash and the smoke and the tears, first and foremost as fellow human beings. We must remember to see each other that way too. Our first responders here in Lincoln know this. The dedication, commitment, and selflessness that defined first responders on 9/11 and our military service members who responded to those attacks and have served since is what they bring to work each day. On behalf of our city, I want to acknowledge and express our gratitude to the public safety professionals who work to keep us safe every day and who see the humanity in all whom they serve. In Nebraska, we also honor the lives of the 63 Nebraskans who gave their lives to defend our country and our safety while fighting the global war on terror. And to this list of patriots, we add their families. We honor and appreciate their sacrifices too. Thank you, all of you who've come out today to remember and to pay tribute to our nation's patriots and public servants. And at this time, I'd like to invite up to the podium Lincoln Police Department Chief Michonne Morrow to give her keynote remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming out today to remember, recognize, and honor our first responders. Thank you to Mayor Gaylor Baird, Chief Engler, and those from our dedicated team at the Lincoln Police Department for your presence today, and for the leadership and support you provide every day to our first responders. The law enforcement and fire professionals here today and those who could not be with us. As we gather here for Patriots Day, we reflect on a somber day in our country's history. We gather to reflect on the 2,977 lives lost on September 11, 2001. We gather to recall the raw emotions of that day, among them shock, fear, grief, and anger. We gather to remember how our sense of security was punctured as we watched the World Trade Center crumble to the ground before our eyes. But among the chaos and the carnage, there was something more to that day. There was so much courage. There was so much compassion. There was so much sacrifice. That day, 343 members of the New York City Fire Department and 71 from the New York City Police Department and Port Authority gave their lives while valiantly attempting to save others. And while other first responders did not lose their lives that day, many would later succumb to exposure from the toxic rubble in Lower Manhattan and the Pentagon. New York Police Detective Luis Alvarez was one of those first heroic responders. He spent 3 months searching for survivors and for remains, including those of fellow officers in and around Ground Zero. Years later, the time he spent surrounded by toxins led to colorectal cancer, a cancer that ultimately took his life in 2019. Yet not before Detective Alvarez underwent 68 rounds of chemotherapy. Not before he implored leaders in Congress to help extend health benefits to thousands of fellow 9/11 responders. And not before he reminded us of the high ethical standards and unwavering integrity that our public safety professionals hold up every day in our community. In his congressional testimony, Detective Alvarez also reminded us how the country came together in the days and months that followed September 11th. Here's what he said. "I have been to many places in this world and done many things, but I can tell you that I did not want to be anywhere else but ground zero when I was there. We were part of showing the world we would never back down from terrorism and that we could all work together. No races, no colors, no politics." The spirit of solidarity behind his words is more important now than ever. It's a spirit that we as police officers, firefighters, paramedics, 9/11 dispatchers, military, those serving, and our veterans, parents, neighbors, friends, all of us must never forget as we work together to ensure that our community continues to be exceptional. A community where together we are strong, yet compassionate, courageous, yet vulnerable, and steeped in traditions, yet advancing forward, always. By working together, we accomplish something else, something that has called all of us here today. We help fulfill the legacy of first responders like Detective Alvarez and our local fallen heroes like Lincoln Police Investigator Mario Herrera. And in doing so, we help enhance the meaning and purpose of their lives while gaining greater meaning and purpose for ours. In closing, today is an important moment to never forget the sacrifices of our first responders on September 11, 2001. Today is also an opportunity to always remember the bravery and compassion our first responders show every day in Lincoln to make it a safe, welcoming, and successful community. And today stands as a powerful reminder of what we can do as Lincoln residents when we see and support each other as our friends and neighbors. Thank you again for coming out this morning and showing your support.
All crews to stand by for an important announcement. Attention all personnel, in honor of 343 firefighters, 23 NYPD police officers, and 37 Port Authority police officers who made the ultimate sacrifice on September 11th, 2001. We promise to never forget, and though you are no longer with us, you will remain in our memories forever. We just had planes crashing from a floor of the World Trade Center, transmit a second alarm, and very little ticket companies in the area. The World Trade Center, tower number 1, is on fire. The whole outside of the building was just a huge explosion. If you run out, World Trade Center, 1060. Send every available ambulance, everything's got to World Trade Center now. There's 3 reports from up here, plane just raised into World Trade Center. We have a number of floors on fire. It looks like the plane was aiming towards the building. Transmit a third alarm. We're at the staging area at Professing and West Street. At the third alarm assignment goes to that area. A second alarm assignment reports to the building day. Second alarm assignment. That's what happened. Boys, there was a plane that struck the building. Hearing 1, we're in the river. You got fire out of the north side now coming out of the west side of the World Trade Center, the west side. Fire from the north side, eh? Please, urgency. You have a second plane, the tower of the Trade Center, both fire. That plane was a large, Florida-style green aircraft into the second tower, please watch. I think it's crazy. There's a little place in the second tower, okay? 3 hours for that. 3 Yes. How many yesterday I got? There's only some at the second tower. Hopefully, people are going to well up. They got a little fire shot out there. Suggest to the Lieutenant Commander Fort David to transmit. We will now have 30 seconds of silence.
Thank you. would now like to introduce Joyce Peck and Diane Bartles with the Veterans Memorial Gardens. They are committee members serving on behalf of our city, who will now read the names that appear on Nebraska's post 9/11 monument, as well as names of additional veterans with a Nebraska correction who have died in service since 9/11.
Corporal Matthew Alexander.
Sergeant Lonnie Calvin Allen, Jr.
Chief Warrant Officer 3, Christopher M. Aguilar.
First Lieutenant Garrison C. Avery.
Staff Sergeant Daniel A. Bader.
Specialist William L. Bailey III.
Staff Sergeant Michael A. Bach.
Specialist Val J. Borm.
Private Noah L. Boy.
Captain Joel E. Cahill.
Specialist Joseph B. Kemper.
Petty Officer First Class Jeffrey L. Cheney.
Staff Sergeant Lillian Clamers.
Lance Corporal Kyle W. Codner.
Sergeant Wayne R. Cornell.
Sergeant Dennis A. Coral.
Sergeant Jermaine L. Darbrough.
Petty Officer First Class John Duandara. Airman Jason J. Doyle.
Sergeant Justin Duffy.
Staff Sergeant Jason A. Fegler.
Staff Sergeant Jeremy J. Fisher.
Sergeant Joshua A. Ford.
Captain Travis A. Ford.
First Lieutenant Jacob N. Fritz.
Master Chief Petty Officer Jeffrey M. Garber.
First Lieutenant Kevin J. Gaspers.
My son, Staff Sergeant Patrick D. Hamburger.
Staff Sergeant Jeffrey J. Hansen.
Corporal Matthew C. Henderson.
Specialist Adam G. Harold.
Petty Officer 3rd Class Micah A. Hill.
Lance Corporal Hunter D. Hogan.
Corporal Josiah W. Holopetter.
Specialist Darren D. Howe.
First Lieutenant Edward D. Ewan.
Sergeant First Class Tricia L. Jameson.
Corporal Jeremy S. Jones.
Specialist Blake C. Kelly.
Corporal Shane E. Keelan.
Petty Officer 3rd Class Eric L. Knott.
Sergeant James P. Latham, Jr.
Staff Sergeant Kenneth E. Locker, Jr.
Captain Dustin R. Lucasavage.
Sergeant Randy J. Matheny.
Sergeant David M. McKeever.
Petty Officer 3rd Class Hospital Corpsman David J. Marino.
Sergeant Dennis B. Morgan.
Sergeant Corey R. Marasic.
Staff Sergeant Jeremy W. Mulher.
SEAL Caleb A. Nelson.
Sergeant First Class Scott E. Nicely.
Sergeant Nicholas S. Nolte.
First Lieutenant Mark A. Noziska.
Corporal Deegan W. T. Page.
Sergeant Jason T. Palmerton.
Private First Class Christopher F. Pfeiffer.
Second Lieutenant Seth C. Pierce.
Staff Sergeant Benjamin G. Prang.
Specialist Blaine E. Redding.
Sergeant Joshua J. Robinson.
Corporal Adrian Robles.
Sergeant Robert C. M. Schultz.
Sergeant Jacob S. Schumacher.
Lance Corporal Michael D. Scholl.
Sergeant Michael S. Sousa,
Captain Scott N. Shemp,
Specialist Benjamin J. Slavin,
Staff Sergeant Christopher W. Swisher,
Master Sergeant Linda A. Tarango Grease,
Airman Luis M. Vasquez,
Specialist James R. Wolf,
Specialist Edwin Eddie C. Wood,
Private First Class Eric P. Woods,
Specialist Dustin L. Workman II,
Captain Robert J. Usalis,
Lance Corporal Brent B. Zocha,
Sergeant Eric M. Holke,
Technical Sergeant Joseph Lem,
Chief Warrant Officer 2 Derek M. Rasmussen,
Sergeant Philip J. Seatack,
Lance Corporal Drew W. Weaver.
And that concludes this morning's ceremony. Thank you all for joining us.